All right, let's get this show on the road. Well, thanks everybody. Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining today. I'm Dwayne Paulson. I'm the co-chair of the National Flood Association Claims Committee with Mike Morgan. He's my co-chair. We also have Robert Bonka, who is the VP of Claims Operations with Colonial Claims, and we have Aaron Truitt on as well with Solstice Innovations. I'd like to just start by thanking the Claims Committee for the NFA that helped put this presentation together. This is the first in a multi-part series. I did want to pay special thanks to Aaron Truitt and Solstice Innovations for helping put together the actual presentation video that you'll be watching here. Towards the end, Robert and Mike and I will join to answer any questions you may have around the claims process. So again, we're pleased to welcome you to today's session, Rising Above the Flood. As I mentioned, this is a multi-part series aimed at providing education of the flood claims process and what you need to know to better protect and serve your clients and your book of business. As a brief introduction for those of you who may be less familiar with the National Flood Association, it is a national nonprofit trade organization that works to advance the common interests of the flood risk management community. Our membership is comprised of a diverse group of flood stakeholders representing insurance, lending, flood, mapping and data, claims, and other segments of the market with a vested interest in flood-related topics. As part of NFA's mission to foster education, open dialogue, and collaboration amongst flood industry stakeholders, we're offering today's session to provide insights into the claims process. So before we begin, we encourage you to enter any questions you may have during the presentation into the chat section on this platform. And also for your reference, we will be providing a recording of this session that will be accessible on demand on the NFA's YouTube channel within the next week or so. With that being said, we're going to get started with the presentation. I'm going to share that and play it, and as I mentioned, we'll be back at the end of that to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks again for joining us.
The National Flood Insurance Program was created by the United States Congress in 1968. For over 50 years, it has provided coverage against damage to structures from the peril of flood. Before we can guide policyholders through a flood loss, it's essential to understand exactly what the NFIP considers a flood. Because clarity here helps agents set expectations, distinguish covered events from non-covered situations, and support clients with confidence when it matters most. According to the National Flood Insurance Program, a flood is defined as a general and temporary condition where water covers 2 or more acres of normally dry land or affects 2 or more properties, including your own. Flooding can occur in several ways. When inland or tidal waters overflow their banks, when heavy rain causes rapid accumulation or surface runoff, or when mudflow, liquid mud carried by water, moves across normally dry ground and enters a property. It can also occur when land along a shore collapses or subsides because waves or moving water have eroded or undermine the ground. Flooding events can happen quickly and unexpectedly, often with little warning. Flash floods in particular can strike almost anywhere. Just 6 inches of fast-moving water can knock over an adult, and 2 feet of water can carry away most vehicles, including SUVs and trucks. Not every instance of rising water meets the NFIP definition of a flood, and it's important for agents to help policyholders understand where the line is drawn. Water seepage through a foundation, for example, is not considered a flood. When water slowly enters a basement over time due to high groundwater levels, it isn't the result of a sudden flood-causing event and therefore isn't covered by the standard flood insurance policy. Wind-driven rain is another common source of confusion. When rain is pushed indoors by wind during a storm, it is classified as wind damage, not flood damage, and falls outside the scope of flood coverage. A distinction explained in FEMA's guidance on separating wind and water losses. Be sure to read through the fact sheet provided with this presentation to familiarize yourself with how wind damage is identified separately from flood damage. Plumbing issues also do not qualify. A toilet that overflows for reasons unrelated to flooding or other localized water damage inside a home does not meet the NFIP requirement. However, some situations fall into a gray area. Property might be covered if a flood pushes water back into the structure through sewer or sump pump pipes. Without flooding as the cause of the backup, the standard flood insurance policy would not cover the damage. When a flood loss occurs, one of the most important responsibilities of the policyholder is to notify their agent or carrier as soon as the damage is discovered. Early reporting allows the insurer to quickly assign an adjuster who can guide the policyholder through the claims process, including scheduling an in-person inspection or, when appropriate, conducting a remote assessment. If a loss is reported late, the carrier may issue a reservation of rights letter to ensure the policyholder is aware that the delay could affect coverage. This letter helps establish that the insurer must still verify whether the late notice hindered their ability to investigate the loss. Reservation of rights letters may also be issued when ownership discrepancies appear or when a rating issue has the potential to limit coverage. In some situations, the adjuster may request that the policyholder sign a non-waiver agreement, which documents the reason for the delayed report while allowing the investigation and inspection to proceed. Agents play a crucial role in supporting their clients both before and after a flood event. Before a loss, agents can help by reminding policyholders how to report a claim, encouraging them to use the consumer portal, sharing FEMA resources, and verifying that contact information and mortgage details are up to date. After a loss, reaching out to affected policyholders, assisting with reporting, and offering calm, empathetic guidance can make a meaningful difference during a stressful time. Every interaction is an opportunity to build trust and help policyholders navigate the first steps of the claims process confidently. Accurate rating is one of the most powerful ways agents can support a smooth claims experience for policyholders. When a policy is written or renewed, the information represented about the building becomes the starting point for both underwriting and claims handling. These include details about the building's occupancy, foundation type, and other structural elements. If these are correct from the start, the claims process can move quickly and efficiently. But when discrepancies surface during a claim, they can introduce delays, additional documentation requirements, and added stress for the policyholder. Common rating issues uncovered during claims include changes in occupancy, such as a seasonal home becoming a primary residence, or incorrect foundation classifications, which can carry different coverage limitations. A building's foundation can be classified as elevated, constructed over a basement, or built on a slab, all of which may change the cost of the policy. Rating discrepancies can also arise when substantial improvements or renovations have been made to the property but are not represented on the flood insurance policy. In any of these situations, the adjuster or underwriter may need additional documentation to verify the building characteristics, such as photos, elevation information, or occupancy details, all of which can slow down the settlement process. Incorrect rating can also affect claim payments. If a policy has been underpaying premium due to inaccurate information, the claim may be delayed while the rating is corrected. In some cases, additional premium must be paid before the claim can be finalized, reducing the final payout or creating unexpected expenses during an already difficult time. Underwriting may even reform the policy with reduced coverage if the discrepancy is significant. For policyholders, these complications compound the emotional and financial stress of recovering from a flood. Ensuring accurate rating up front helps agents protect their clients, avoid delays, and support a smoother path to claim resolution. Keeping a policy up to date is one of the simplest and most effective ways to prevent delays during the claims process, as we will see in the following example. When a major storm hit, Maria filed her flood claim right away. But after the adjuster reviewed her file, something didn't match. Her policy still listed her old mortgage company, even though she had refinanced with a new lender. What should have been a straightforward claim turned into a week of phone calls and paperwork as the insurer worked to confirm who actually held an insurable interest in the property. Life changes, such as refinancing a home, updating a name after marriage or divorce, or even switching phone numbers or email addresses, can create confusion if the policyholder's information hasn't been updated. For agents, helping policyholders stay current is a simple but meaningful service. Mortgage changes on the homeowner's policy, including refinances and home equity lines of credit, should prompt updates on the flood policy as well. Named insured changes and basic contact details should also be verified regularly, especially before hurricane season or during renewal conversations. These updates ensure that when a claim occurs, the adjuster has accurate information and can move quickly without needing to pause the process for verification. In our example, if Maria's agent had updated her lender information when the refinance occurred, her claim would have progressed smoothly, allowing her to focus on recovery instead of paperwork. Keeping policies current not only protects the policyholder, but also helps agents provide a more seamless and supportive claims experience. Beyond providing prompt notice of loss, policyholders play an important role in documenting their damage and supporting the claims process. One of the most valuable steps they can take is to thoroughly document their property before, during, and after a flood. Photos or videos taken before an event help establish the materials, finishes, and personal belongings that were present prior to the loss. When significant damage occurs, this before documentation becomes essential proof of what was damaged and its condition. Capturing images during a flood can also be extremely helpful. Not all flood events leave behind a clear debris line, and wave action can push water higher than the eventual watermark. By photographing the rising water in real time, the policyholder provides crucial evidence of the extent of the flooding. After the water recedes, continued documentation is equally important. Sometimes contractors begin cleanup quickly, removing debris and damaged contents before the adjuster arrives. Without photos showing what was damaged by floodwaters, the adjuster may have difficulty determining what was present and directly damaged. For both building and personal property items, photos, lists, and receipts help support the claim and demonstrate direct damage caused by the flood. Documentation should continue even as repairs begin. Photos taken during the restoration process can be useful if the property experiences a future flood. helping distinguish previous repairs from new damage. Policyholders should also save receipts, invoices, contractor estimates, and mitigation bills in a secure location, preferably backed up digitally. After a flood, policyholders should separate damage from undamaged property, remove wet and non-salvageable materials to prevent mold, and keep small samples of items like carpet or flooring to show the adjuster. While health hazard debris can be discarded, it should be photographed first and included in the personal property list. Policyholders must also allow adjusters reasonable access to inspect the property, and if needed, to conduct a re-inspection. These duties are required under the standard flood insurance policy, and failure to meet them may jeopardize the claim. By documenting thoroughly and keeping good records, policyholders help ensure that their claim can be evaluated accurately and fairly. Once a claim is submitted, the adjuster becomes the policyholder's primary guide through the NFIP claims process. Adjusters typically reach out within 48 hours of assignment to introduce themselves and schedule an inspection, setting expectations and helping the policyholder understand what comes next. They usually provide key documents such as their contact information, a flood questionnaire, the NFIP claims handbook, and the increased cost of compliance brochure. Depending on the circumstances of the loss, they may also help the policyholder request an advance payment based on the damage observed and the documentation available. It's important for policyholders and agents to remember that adjusters do not have the authority to approve or deny coverage. Their job is to evaluate the loss, gather evidence, and prepare an estimate based on NFIP guidelines. The final coverage decision is made by the WYO carrier or the NFIP itself. If the property has flooded before, the adjuster is required to verify that previous damage was repaired or replaced, which may involve collecting receipts, photographs, and paid invoices. This step ensures that the claim reflects only new, flood-related damage. After the inspection, the adjuster submits their findings to the insurer, providing a detailed report that forms the basis for claim review. Policyholders should be cautious of scams. Legitimate NFIP adjusters will never request payment, collect deductibles, or charge a fee for their services. They will, however, be able to show their official flood control number card, also called a FCN card, which includes their identification and confirms their active status for the current storm year. A clear understanding of the adjuster's role helps agents prepare policyholders for what to expect and reinforces confidence in the process from the very first interaction. Agents play a vital part in helping policyholders navigate an NFIP loss, and a clear understanding of their role can make the claims experience far smoother for everyone involved. After a disaster, agents should proactively reach out to clients by phone, email, or even an on-site visit when appropriate. They can help clarify what is and isn't covered under the policy, assist in gathering documentation, and ensure the policyholder has realistic expectations, especially for losses occurring in basements or in post-firm elevated buildings within special flood hazard areas. Staying informed about NFIP and FEMA updates, bulletins, and changes to the appeals process enables agents to provide accurate guidance, particularly since FEMA enforces a strict 60-day deadline for filing an appeal after a denial letter is issued. Another important responsibility is supporting policyholders without influencing the outcome of the claim. Agents should encourage clients to communicate openly with their adjuster, but also remind them that adjusters cannot make instant coverage decisions at the door. Agents should be cautious when asked to recommend contractors or mitigation companies, as these recommendations can unintentionally create misunderstandings about coverage or scope. Instead, agents can help protect their clients by offering general guidance and reminding them to verify credentials, contracts, and expectations before signing anything. Agents can also help reduce confusion by preparing policyholders for the timeline of an NFIP claim. A typical flood claim can take up to 60 days, and if an advance payment is needed, the policyholder should coordinate directly with the adjuster. Keeping contact information, mortgagee details, and named insured information updated is essential. Once a claim is reported, changes of this kind may require supporting documentation and slow the process. Ultimately, every interaction is an opportunity to provide clarity and reassurance. With natural disasters often causing both wind and flood damage, policyholders may need to file multiple claims and work with several adjusters. By staying engaged, informed, and supportive, agents help their clients move through the claims process with confidence and avoid unnecessary setbacks. This concludes our introductory webinar on flood claims, the first episode in the Rising Above the Flood series. Throughout this session, we explored what the NFIP considers a flood, clarified common misconceptions about what is and isn't covered, and walked through the essential responsibilities of policyholders, adjusters, and agents. The goal of this presentation is simple: to equip insurance professionals with the clarity and confidence needed to guide policyholders through one of the most stressful moments they may ever face. When agents understand the claims process from start to finish, they are better prepared to set expectations, reduce delays, and support smoother recoveries for the communities they serve. Thank you for watching this presentation. We look forward to meeting with you again for the next episode of Rising Above the Flood, where we will build on this foundation and continue strengthening your understanding of NFIP flood claims.
Safe pilot, I can save when
Thank you all very much for joining us. I think we're going to open it up for questions. If you have any, feel free to drop them in the chat here. And Mike or Rob or myself will answer those for you. Also, just wanted to kind of put out there that, as it was mentioned in the video, this will be a series, so we're going to start to take a deeper dive into the future. We're going to try to make these monthly or so to try to get into a deeper dive on very specific topics. Be looking for the next one coming up in late January, and we're going to cover what's covered and what's not covered. Do a deeper dive into things like elevated building enclosures and basements. So that'll be very informational for you to be able to pass along to clients and answer questions that they may have. So, you seen any questions there yet?
Not yet.
Thank you, Elaine, for the comment.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I wanted to make sure that we kind of remind everybody that the NFA's 2026 annual conference will be held March 15th through 17th in fabulous Scottsdale, Arizona once again. Come on down. I'm sure most of us will be tired of the winter months by then, so come down and warm up. For more information about that event and to register, you can navigate to our NFA website where you'll find that information. Looks like we have a question about will we be covering properties in the name of a trust? It's a good question. We can definitely, I'll jot that down, and the claims committee will make sure we raise that as a topic and see what we can put together on that.
That's a great discussion, Jody.
maybe chat about some challenges that we face as adjusters related to decisions made at policy placement. So that's a good one. We can kind of talk a little bit about that now. Mike, Rob, what are a couple things that we run into, our adjusters run into when they're out there in the field looking at trying to help a policyholder with their claim and running into issues maybe with some, underwriting or something that transpired?
Well, contact information will be the first thing I'd bring up because, in an event like this, perhaps they've changed their phone number or updated their email address. If they could give that to us when the claim is filed, that always helps us be able to expedite communication and set up an inspection with them. So I'd say that's the number one we see.
Great point. Mike?
Underwriting issues that should have been addressed in the placement of the policy. It seemed like this last storm, we've seen more underwriting issues which hold up claim payment than ever before.
Yeah, it can be a pretty complex environment when you're writing a policy. So, understanding all those nuances and how to get that appropriately rated up front. And then I guess I'll tag on to that and kind of say, changes that I think we addressed that in the video somewhat, but changes that may take place after the policy is placed. It can be mortgage companies, mailing addresses, named insureds, those kind of things that may change over time. To make sure that you're staying in contact with your clients and updating that type of information goes a long way to help prevent issues for that policyholder when they do have a claim, if they do unfortunately have a claim. So lots of times those issues need to be resolved. Additional premium, lots of times those claim payments can be held up while that process takes place. So obviously we all want to really be there to assist these policyholders and get them taken care of as soon as possible. So
our goal here is to really to educate the agent a little bit more on the claims process. I know a lot of times you guys don't even deal with the claims end of it. But the first phone call that's ever made is the insured calling you saying, I've had a loss. What do I do? Or secondly, my adjuster's not here. What do I do? Or third, I don't agree with what the adjuster's doing. And we're trying to help you guys answer those questions as well. As Dwayne said, the next webinar will be a lot more detailed and get down in the weeds a lot more. But our primary goal here is to educate and help you guys more in the way the claims are processed and what's needed and how to make your insureds a lot more comfortable with the process. It's not a homeowner's claim. It does take a little longer.
I had a good question here from Brian. How common is inaccurate underwriting? Has the elimination of the requirement of the EC impacted that? Anybody want to chime in? I'm sure we'd all have pretty much the same answer there.
Yeah, it's very common. In an elevated building, a lot of times the insured isn't really fully understanding that they have an elevated building. When you take a step or two up, they think that's not considered elevated, but in the flood industry, it is. So, we've got to make sure we've got underwriting right, and we've got to get the underwriting working on it as soon as we find out. As soon as the adjuster's out there to see it and report on it, then we want to get that expedited.
Yeah, and segue in there too. Even though the ECs aren't necessarily required for rating anymore, from a claims perspective, there are times when those are very important. So that gets a little interesting when one doesn't exist. And just quick example there is like elevators, depending on when they were installed. Lots of times certain equipment that's below the BFE is not covered or it's limited. So it's very important to kind of understand that relation, and the EC is what we used to rely on heavily for that. So sometimes there's actually cases where you have to go out and get an EC after the fact to assist in making that determination so you know what's covered and what's not covered. And that elevator equipment can be, as we all know, very expensive. So it's a lot riding on that.
There was a comment about having agents identify multiple buildings on the loss notice. Did you cover that, Dwayne?
I did, and that's a great one, though. I know we've all seen that. Very important because for instance, you get out there, I can tell you 1,000 stories. You get out there and it's rated as a single story with the basement, and you get out there and all that's there is a 2-story that's elevated or something of that nature, right? Or multiple buildings, and trying to determine which building is actually insured can be problematic sometimes. So we typically look to that rating information. It's really important to note, I guess the takeaway there is the flood policy covers one building per policy. So it's not the location you're insuring, it's the structures. So very important to know that as an agent. You wouldn't want to get caught where you're thinking you're insuring, 3 buildings on site and you're not. And there's some variances to that. Mike, you want to speak a little bit about like detached garages?
I was fixed to say you can have the instance of a detached garage, and then they have a shop that's on the same property as well, and they assume that shop is covered. It's not. Another instance on a commercial property, you have the old motor ends that is horseshoe shaped, but there's actually 3 separate buildings because they're not connected by continuous roof line. They would have 3 policies on that property.
Yeah.
Unless they are connected. If they're connected, then we can go with one policy.
Yeah, that'd be a good one for us to deep dive into future sessions of this series for sure. I had a comment here. As the agents are also helping their policyholders, the agent should emphasize the importance of a properly signed and submitted proof of loss. So yeah, it's very important. The program requires a signed proof of loss and documented proof of loss. So again, something we can probably dive into. Mike, it looked like you were going
to
say something.
I really want to plug on our next webinar because we're going to do a deep dive into what is required, and the proof of loss is part of that deep dive and why. So we urge everybody to join the next one to be more detailed. And
there's another question about time frame for an adjuster to get out there. Again, that's going to come down to what kind of an event, size of an event, accessibility. But generally, we have the adjuster contact the insured within 24 hours is our goal. So, and get out there obviously as soon as possible. But that's all going to come down to the disaster that we're dealing with at the time.
Yeah, lots of times you can't access it. We get IO. In fact, we were just talking about one. I'm sure if you've been watching the news, you've seen the flooding in Washington and in the Northwest. So flooding doesn't just happen during hurricanes and tropical storms. Washington's got some pretty severe flooding and mudslides and stuff going on right now. There are some that are in remote locations that are hard to access, or they're prevented from accessing because the roads are out, those types of things. So yeah, a bit of that and policyholder availability that can come into play there as well.
Yep.
Loving all these questions. This is great. Clarity on what structurally makes a second structure attached, roof line versus load bearing. So there's an acronym out there that you can. It's called, I think it's REALS, right? Roof lines, elevated walkways, walls, that type of stuff. You can get more detail on that from the policy itself or the claims manual. But yes, there's some nuance to that where if you're looking at multiple buildings, that there are certain connectors that allow them to be insured as one structure, or you can have two policies on them. Yeah, and that's at the policyholder's decision there. So it's important nuance to know, though, because it's one, if you truly have if you can insure it as two, it may be better for them to have 2 different policies because of the coverage issue. Earlier we mentioned detached garages. That is one of the cases where for dwelling policies, if you have a detached garage, you can choose to apply up to 10% of your policy coverage on building to that. Again, that it reduces your coverage a bit, but there's also certain instances where if it's used for farming purposes or you have an office or living space in that where it negates that coverage for it. So it would be prudent to offer a standalone policy on that structure.
And as agents, you really have to understand in that detached garage, if there's a living quarters in it and what stipulates to be a living quarters, and is it big enough to get a car in? I've seen that question.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Is
to
it
go over.
motorcycle parking, et cetera, and the bright line rule for federal flood is you have to be able to park a car in it first and foremost. So, many notes here. It's exceptionally important to have a policyholder take photos of their damage prior to the adjuster's inspection. Always true. Yeah, it's very important to notify policyholders to make sure that they're documenting their loss. People really want to get started on getting all that wet material out and starting to clean up after an event. So it's really important that they document that.
And it can really put it in perspective to the carrier, when they see that extent of how high the water was inside, and it just helps. It helps put the entire claim in perspective.
Brian Jones notes that he agrees with what constitutes structurally connected would be a great topic. So that'd be one we can definitely hit on. That's a good, what's covered, what's not covered, and when it's covered and when it's not covered topic for sure.
That's great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dwayne, do we have an address that they can send some questions to that we can consider for the next topic as well? I'm sure after everybody hangs up here, they're going to go, man, I wished I'd asked this question. See if I could trip them.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I know we've been talking. I don't think we have actual NFA addresses yet. Are there something in Q&A too? Let's take a look at that. If somebody would look to see what that is.
Yeah, there's a question on the piggyback on the detached garage, and a commercial policy doesn't extend coverage to detached garages. That's correct. So
That's correct.
It's written under a GP policy, a general property policy. There is no additional structures coverage. So you can't take 10% for other outbuildings. That's a great point.
Sure is. Somebody notes Layla's questions. I'm sure she would thoroughly enjoy receiving all those questions and suggestions, which would be fine. You feel free. I can pass mine out. It's Dwayne at adminstrat.com if you have suggestions or questions, and I'm sure Mike or Rob probably wouldn't mind providing theirs as well.
Mine's pretty simple. Mike Morgan at advadj.com. Adam David Victor, AdamDavidJohn.com.
Mine's R Bonka, BONKA at colonialclaims.com.
Yeah. And mine, Dwayne, DUANE at adminstrat. Any other questions, see? Awesome.
Agree with one of the notes there that, when the claim's called in, make sure we get the most current email address and current contact information for the insured, cell phone, home phone. If their home's, damaged beyond living, they can't live there. You might even obtain their addresses where they're going to be relocated if possible.
Great point. And some of those additional resources you might be able to provide to them too when they're making contact with you is, if it's already out there, major disasters, there's typically some type of disaster assistance hotline set up, whether that's federal or local, that you can pass along to them as well, just to make sure that they're getting any additional help that they may have.
One of the things that we saw major hurdles as well was mortgages either being paid off or have changed to a different mortgage company. Need that documentation as quick as we can. When the adjuster shows up to inspect the property, that's a great time to let them know, hey, I've changed from Amarillo National to Chase Bank, lower rates, etc. We need that information because they will not release funds until that answer is corrected and we have documentation. And it's not just a payment book. Looking for the contract if possible.
Yeah. That's a good. We'll again, lots of details, but Mortgage companies are considered policyholders as well, and if there is a known mortgage company or lien holder, they are included on the building checks, not necessarily on the personal property contents checks, but on the building for sure. So it's important to have the correct one, because even if you get them a check and you get it in their hand, they may not be able to execute it, and they'll need to, get that void and reissued, which again is a time issue for these policyholders that really need to get money in their hands. And to Mike's point, getting it up front, especially for advance payments, which we really strive to help the policyholder get them started on their journey to recovery. Very important to have some of that information up front.
Since you brought up the advance payments, and we're probably getting way ahead of our next webinar, but if we're going to do an advance payment, we usually look at the contents coverage, hopefully to cover the advance, because if we advance, say, $15,000 on the building policy, and they have a mortgage, there's a possibility that the bank would not allow those funds to go to the insured. If it's advanced on the contents, that would go straight to the insured, and they don't have to go to the bank to have it signed off on. Did I say that correctly, Dwayne, or any better to put it?
No, that was good. That was really good. All right. Well, looks like the questions have slowed down. Now it looks like Layla's good with passing on stuff. So again, any of the email addresses, it'll get back to us for sure. Use ours or Layla's, the NFA address, and we'd love to hear any feedback that you guys have about the video presentation, about future topics you want to hear about. We'd love to hear about it, so we make sure we get those put in. All right.
Spread the word, and let's get more people involved.
Yeah, come on out to the annual conference. Like I said, not only is it beautiful weather, but you'll get a couple days of awesome information. Not just about claims. Like I said, this organization is all parts and pieces of flood insurance and those other related entities around it. So, yeah, come on out and learn about it. We'd love to have you.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Well, with that, we'll end it. And we look forward to keep an eye out. We'll be getting something out here soon for the one for late next month. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.